Hi, everybody. This is Matt Rosenblatt, Business Director at Fjord, New York. I'm going to take you through a really compelling case around work that we just delivered from Marriott, specific to touch and tech. So the opportunity was really interesting. We were given a chance to really reshape the entire way Marriott presented itself and prepared itself for the next generation of traveler who really considered Marriott in many ways sort of an old-fashioned, your pops kind of hotel chain. So there were a number of really important objectives that the client set forth for us. First and foremost was to gather insights about who that next generation traveler guest is, and to generate themes that would help define the opportunities that bring together the notions of touch and tech. Tech being the kinds of devices that are used, touch meaning that whom we call or reach out to specifically on the Marriott side to give us advice about travel. We also were asked to create a customer journey and a blueprint that would identify the specific pain points in the guest and employee journey that results from the disconnect that they were currently experiencing with touch and tech. We were also asked to deliver a customer and provider-centric vision and key opportunity concepts for touch and tech to demonstrate what a seamless guest experience could look like. We had our druthers. And finally, this is all about creating a high-level business case that demonstrates the value of service design, which is part and parcel of what Fjord delivers, a service design language specific to Marriott so that they can really look forward. So as many of us who travel are probably aware, Marriott is really losing relevance with the next generation traveler who's looking for a more seamless omni-channel experience. Omni-channel, of course, referring to experiences that traverse many, many different devices and touch points, whether it's reserving on a tablet, looking it up on the website, having personal interactions with Marriott services, things like that. They're losing relevance. As I mentioned before, it's really where your parents went to stay, or it's sort of associated with a very sort of long-in-the-tooth rewards program. As it plainly states here, we were tasked with demonstrating that a Marriott service design language would bring together the worlds of tech and touch in a way that would attract this really much coveted audience, the audience that is growing in leaps and bounds, that we really had to get the attention of. And that's what we refer to as the next generation traveler, essentially the millennials. So this is the approach that we took. One of the hallmarks of Fjord design is not thinking about traditional design first at all. Really, it's very, very heavy research. And as you can see here, we really took that to the forefront, the notion of research, the notion of really living and breathing in the shoes of a number of actors in this grand play. So we interviewed 23 different stakeholders from across Marriott's organization, including those in the touch world, the digital world, the brand world, and operations. 2, we interviewed 60 Marriott agents. And not just talk to them, but really shadowed them. What did they do? We specifically did a workshop even with the Marriott touch agents in Omaha, Nebraska, as they handled real phone calls, real emails, real chat requests with the customers that they come across every day. We engaged 14 participants in digital ethnography. This was really, really important because we wanted to understand kind of how participants felt from various ethnicities about the hotel. We really wanted to go beyond just, if you live here, here's your feeling and approach to Marriott. We really wanted to get deep down into what that's all about. So the digital ethnographies of Marriott guests were across the country, and they really partook in missions, and we recorded their experiences throughout the process. And finally, there were some 500 plus, I think it was closer to 700 pages of documents that were reviewed. Team members were observed and captured as we traveled to various Marriotts as well. So really, really heavy research. The only way that you can really provide, in the end, a service design blueprint is to really exactly know what Marriott folks are going through, what customers are going through, and then to try to marry those worlds together in heretofore new ways. So, as you can see, we visited the lovely Omaha, and we were greeted with this wall that probably existed since, I'd say, circa 71, if not earlier. We visited Marriott Customer Care, and if there was ever a symbol of an organization that needed design help, I think it's captured beautifully by this lovely slide right here, where a number of us back in July went to the sales and customer care offices and were greeted with this lovely digital sign. clearly they needed help. If this sign alone didn't prove that, many other things did. As I mentioned before, we did a lot of learning from the agents themselves, and these were the people that directly talked to customers, calling in, emailing in, sending in digital chats, to really understand what their world is like, what their common conversations were like, and how that entire back and forth experience could be improved. We workshopped with them a lot. We sat around countless tables. We figured things out together. One of the great things about this kind of work in terms of creating a service design blueprint isn't that you walk away in some kind of black box forever. It's that you really collaborate. Nobody knows best about their world than those who work there every day. But what we bring them are fresh perspectives and then solutions that they may not have considered. So there was a lot of workshopping. This is one of many that you're seeing here. Listen, how in the world are we going to learn what an experience is ultimately like unless we get under those covers and get to those hotels and really drink up the experiences ourselves? So needless to say, while we went to Omaha and elsewhere, we recorded our stays at real Marriott and recorded our own impressions and gave ourselves a sense of what it was like, pros, cons, and in between. So after all that was done, the interviews were done, stays were made, customer care agents were visited, the workshops were concluded, we began to analyze everything that we saw and read and spoke about and discussed. We began to analyze what could turn into a service design blueprint. Out of all of this, we began to develop individual themes that would serve as the framework of the ultimate concepts that we would deliver for Marriott, the thematic concepts. They include, you can't really tell here, but just shows you the enormous body of work and thought leadership that was provided, just slapped around. The colors represented different things and different thought constructs and different subsets of those themes along the way. The main themes are, and we conjured 8 of them, were, number one, we need to build relationships with our guests. Our guests did not feel like they were in relationships. Our guests merely felt that we were destinations to go to and to leave. And never the two shall meet, never the relationship should continue between visits. That had to change. Theme number 2, we don't know them. We do not know who our customers are. Oh, sure, we know a couple of basic pieces of information based on the fact that they visited with us or based on the fact that they joined a rewards program. We may know that they prefer an extra towel or an early check-in here and there. But do we really know them? We do not. Theme number 3, they don't know us. They don't know who we are as a company. They don't know the kinds of things that we can do to fulfill those experiences that much more, and to, again, bridge the gaps between communications and between stays. Theme number 4 was that touch plays a critical role and needs to involve with Marriott. The use of the tablet and the phone and web and other devices that could really enhance the experience, all the way through things that other hotels had already begun to start, which is using the phone to open doors and things like that. So the value of touch was theme number 4. Number 5 was the agents need empowerment. The agents did not have the tools and the techniques to truly learn about their customers, to have more fulfilling chats with them. We needed to give them the tools to make those experiences for the customers that much better. Theme number 5 was that they need the right tools and technology. So theme 4 was that they need empowerment in the macro construct. Theme 6 was that they need the right tools and technology to really bring that to life. Theme 7 was the ability to help beyond the 4 walls. Marriott must be an institution that helps customers beyond the individual stays. This is hugely important. The connective tissue of an experience isn't always just the experience while you're lying in bed. It's the experience outside of that. And we'll get into that more in a minute. And then finally, to make this all happen, it requires a systematic shift in mindset from the notion of pure service to the notion of a host, a proactive host that can actually guess in an educated way our needs. So all of that was sort of slapped on the wall in different ways, but that was the central construct of all the thematics that we provided to Marriott. And then we had to sort of fuse that together. We had to check those themes around executives and held workshops to help make sure that they were everything they could be. So here you're seeing a shot of a number of Fjordians, a number of Accenture folks, a number of executives at Marriott, all working through these themes. all working through it with images, with words, with phrases, with additional thoughts, with subsets of thoughts, to really make the whole service design language that was the ultimate deliverable come to life in really special ways. What you're looking at here are the building blocks for what would ultimately become what we refer to as a service design blueprint. Now, the goal of this blueprint really was to explain everything that the customer should see, taste, touch, and feel in and around a visit to Marriott. You know, at all stages of the process, from consideration to booking to departure to stay to post-stay and so on, what are the desired emotions that we want from our clients? What are the guest needs? What are the guest actions? What are the system actions that have to happen to make the guest actions come to life? What are the channel interactions? So what is that combination of touch and tech and property interplay that will make the actions come to life? What are the current pain points around those? And ultimately, what are some thought starters so that we can say, okay, here are all the issues, here are all the pains, here's the interactions that should happen, here's what we should make them feel. But maybe give us a couple of concepts along the base of that can make all of this come to life. So it's not just this sort of abstract idea. It's, wouldn't this be neat if, based on everything that we learned? So that's what you're beginning to see getting conjured here on slide 15. Yes, a design firm can occasionally get engaged in doing some math. The math here was really around going beyond just some nice concepts in a service design blueprint, but it's ultimately about what are the KPIs? What will our service design delivery ultimately deliver in terms of customers staying longer? How many customers are going to stay longer? What is the value, the intrinsic and monetary value of a customer getting more connected to Marriott in certain ways? So all of this actually had to be thought about in the mathematical construct outside of just the pure design world. Finally, we presented. So on that right side, you see that huge piece of paper, which is the full service design blueprint. In the middle are all the themes that I talked about before. And all this was presented to the rest of the Marriott executives to say, okay, here are the themes that you have to work against, and here's the service design blueprint, the emotions, the needs, the actions, the channel interactions, the pain points, all the thought starters, so that we're all in alignment about what needs to happen next. And boy, was this discussed endlessly, again and again. A service design blueprint isn't something that you create and throw at the client, but it's something to be heavily discussed so that all of those actions and channel interactions and thought starters are agreed upon so that there's a true North Star with the client. What we're seeing here, with fewer people, as they're leaving the room, we're getting more and more alignment. So we're saying, okay, we are now coming to agreement and conclusion on the service design blueprint, on the themes, on the basic frameworks of putting together this Marriott construct. The result. The ultimate delivery in this particular case is a service design blueprint. And that is, as I mentioned, a couple of really, really important items. So along the top, and you're only seeing a piece of it here, are all the stages that somebody goes through in and around a Marriott visit. So they're considering the hotel. They're booking the hotel. There's a pre-departure area where you're thinking about travel. There's the go, where you're actually departing. There's the arrival. There's staying. There's working within the property. There's playing within the property. There's leaving the property. There's travel home. And there's post-trip. So again, we're actually talking here about a hotel. It ain't just about the stay. It's about all those things around it. That is how service turns into host, turns into anticipatory host. It turns into a host that never completely leaves you because you're going to have needs before and after, of course during, but all the rest of it as well. And all of these aspects of the service design blueprint helps them achieve that goal. What are the emotions at every stage of that process that I just mentioned? The needs, the actions, the channel interactions, the pain points, all along the way and how we can solve them, and then the thought starters to put thought into actual action for the client. So remember, I talked about thought starters. This is about making all stages of a visit and all stages at which a Marriott employee interfaces with a customer or a potential customer, how they bring that to life. So what you're seeing here on this slide is this notion of proactivity, thoughtful, dynamic, empowered activity. And we actually sort of wrote out plays if you will. So we're looking at the notion of going from acting on travel changes. Like, let's say Samantha gets a notification letting her know that Jack's connecting flight is canceled, so she searches the Marriott hotels near the airport. This is something an agent can do on behalf of a customer that isn't even at their property yet. Then they're able to make rebooking easy. Then they're able to make preferences more portable. So maybe the maid at the newly booked hotel gets Jack's room preference and prepares the room just for him. And then the food is ordered because we know that they're going to be late, and perhaps the restaurants are closed, but we want to have a nice hot meal ready for them. And we can customize the stay based on Jack's arrival. Our actor in this play, he sees everything is set up for him in the newly booked hotel. And then adding little personal touches, like 5 minutes later, his meal arrives in the room right then and there. But Jack thinks, my gosh, Marriott did everything for me. It was one less thing for me to worry about in my busy schedule. That is an extraordinary construct by which Marriott is more than just the place you go to because you have to, because that's what it's booked for you, but it sort of lives and breathes outside of the world of the stay. So the previous slide was proactive. Now we're talking knowledgeable. So let's go through this scenario. One, finding the right hotel. So Jack's researching hotel options that blend his leisure and business needs. And after looking at a number of options, he goes to the Marriott.com to get more information. Well, right away, Samantha, our pretend Marriott agent here, initiates a chat with Jack to help him pick the right hotel. She can see things in her newly aligned tool kit that she has, but also that his birthday is coming up. So maybe he gets a message via chat recommending the Portland Marriott downtown waterfront with a free upgrade for his birthday. And we can curate beyond the room. Number 4, where Samantha finds a soccer event for that weekend and asks Jack if he'd be interested in attending. And Jack may see her recommendation for the game and says, yeah, I can't refuse, and adds that to his booking with one click. And then from there, Samantha adds to his profile that he's a fan of a particular soccer team. And then later, Jack now has all the reservation documents organized and ready for the trip, automatically collected in his app. So this is all that we learn about a guest that makes the eventual stay that much more fulfilling. And again, it goes outside of the walls of that particular stay in that particular moment. And then finally, in this sort of constructed world of possibilities, these thought starters that derive from the service design blueprint, we have the notion of resourceful, that kind of well-connected and flexible and helpful stay. So we imagine here a response made fast and efficient. So Jack requested early check-in, gets picked up by Samantha, who ensures a room that fits the same criteria. She checks if toothpaste request has been picked up by an associate, and it has. And then on his way to the hotel, Jack updates his reservation for early check-in via the app. Then he realizes, oh, he forgot his toiletry bag. He also puts in a request for toothpaste and a razor, 2 Marriott services. And you see that's part of the touch, right? So he's texting them immediately. The requests are shared dynamically. So it gets transferred to the property. And then by the time he arrives to his room, his request for toothpaste and a razor has already been delivered. He doesn't have to go back downstairs. He doesn't have to ask for it again. It's there. And then he's guided throughout the stay. So maybe the next day Jack receives a message from Marriott with the traffic and weather forecast, as well as a reminder to leave an hour prior to the game, because we know about the weather, and we can provide that info to him. And there are seamless payments and perks. So he may arrive at the stadium, that soccer match we mentioned before that he's interested in. He chooses an option to pay the ride with Marriott points that he's already accumulated. There's one less thing he has to worry about, and thanks to Marriott, he can get a free ride. And then maybe there's dynamic reporting. So after Jack's checkout, the maid may find a laptop charger in his room after he left. She quickly reports the lost property to the front desk. He can retrieve it very simply. He gets an email from Marriott saying, would you like this charger sent right to him? He'll follow the link, enter his FedEx account information, and then ultimately the dialogue can always continue. So after a few days, he receives a follow-up email checking whether he received his charger. Also gives him an update on his status being upgraded to platinum. So again, the notion of beyond the 4 walls, the notion of the connection between tech and touch, the notion of the resourcefulness with which we have the relationship, the proactivity with which we have the relationship, all of that is taken care of by these thought starters that were generated from the service design blueprint. Earlier I mentioned the math that designers rarely do, but did in this case. And in this particular case, you see that really comes to fore and why this is important. So touch and tech, we know, drives value in a number of key areas and sets the foundation for a kind of frictionless smart service that's informed by service design language that we showed before, and this notion of an anticipatory host that lives and breathes before, after, and during the stay. So we look at sort of new customers that are captured in the various segments that we looked at through our updated service design blueprint. Below that, you see the kind of revenue growth and cost reductions that are brought about through the better use of tech and touch. So, for example, new customers captured in various segments that we're looking at, $21 million. And that's just through maybe a 0.5% capture based on our omni-channel proxies that we put into play. Or the increased spend of current customers maybe goes to about $45 million, which is based on just an increase of like 0.25% in share of wallet, captured from some up and cross-sell efforts. So total opportunity just across those two customer segments is about $66 million. And then, of course, as we mentioned, there are additional benefits associated with that. Customer lifetime value goes up about 3 times, and there's a halo effect across all customer segments because one will talk to another, right? And at the same time, there are cost reductions. So, high-effort interactions are reduced by $21 million, and low-value tasks are reduced by $30 million. So total channel efficiency gains are worth about $51 million. And these are extremely conservative estimates. These are the baselines of what we think we can achieve. So in the end, when we think about the growth and the cost reductions, we're talking about a touch and tech total opportunity of about $117 million. And again, using very, very conservative math. So in the end, what were we able to do? Well, alignment is huge here. We all know how difficult it is to align executives across departments around a shared vision. One of the things that Pure does all the time, of course, is create these workshops called Rumbles. Well, they're called Rumbles for a reason, because executives have different visions of how to get things across, and they actually battle it out. If not literally, they certainly do figuratively. But to be able to align around a shared vision, you saw a lot of those images of all the workshopping and the presenting and working closely with them, so that there was a shared vision, and ultimately they had a tool to communicate a vision across the organization. So the service design blueprint really was able to be slapped in that Marriott office to say, here is our shared vision. Here is how the vision is going to work. Here is the framework of that. Next step down the line, we'll be actually executing against that vision. When we do this kind of work, it is always emboldening to get nice words from the client. And this particular one from the VP of Digital User Experience said it best. The work was very inspiring, and we unite the digital and voice teams in a new way. Voice was her word for what we referred to in this presentation as touch. It's bringing together the voice of the agent with the digital means that the customer will be attached to. So we haven't really, quote-unquote, designed anything, have we, outside of the blueprint? Not yet. But it is amazing when we think what this work, this blueprint, has catalyzed. Because outside of this, we're being given opportunities at Marriott that we had never had before. What I just showed you is just phase one. Phase one of this living services construct. Phase two is actually creating the service design language around it. That's coming up probably in the calendar year. Two is that we are beginning to talk to them about some really, really cool stuff. First and foremost, this sort of enhanced room selection. Being able to go beyond just extra towels and I want a king bed versus a double bed, but to really transforming rooms around needs and desires of customers. Three is we were able to get an RFI that we might not have before around sort of aligning organizational change for the greater Marriott. We were given an RFP around a loyalty community vision to really enhance what's known as the Marriott Rewards program, to use social groups in that program much better than before. And then we're also beginning to talk about the really, really sort of far-reaching stuff around wearables and a quote-unquote intelligent environment, so that the properties themselves can come to life in ways that they never could have imagined, using things like wearables to open doors, to create mood lighting based on what we know about the customer, all of those kinds of things. So all of these opportunities stem from the very first service design blueprint and the work around it. So we're just delighted, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of this presentation. What I would like to leave you with is that these are thoughts and tools that we put in front of clients across all industries. So in the case of Marriott, it's a really fertile ground to sort of reinvent who they are on a brand level, and we do it through service blueprint design means, so that all of their executives can get aligned around a common vision of the greatness that this property can really achieve. Thank you for your time.